Our Dodger's been out here for a few days and now it's got some dirt on the top of it, but that'll be easy to clean up with just some fresh water. But the weather is not cooperating for us. It's a little bit warmer now, but not as warm as we had hoped. At any rate, what we want to talk about now is how do we install zippers in the forward panel in order to be able to roll up the center of the Dodger should we want to allow air to come through. So what we're going to talk about now is how we mark this for where we're going to put the zippers in. And zippers really can be installed in any number of ways in the front of a Dodger. You could create a smile or a frown. I think if I was doing this, I'd probably create a frown and then allow the panel to drop forward or back. If you're interested in that type of a zipper where you're just putting it into the fabric structure without cutting down all the way to the bottom of the front of the Dodger, you should refer to the Sewing Zippers in a Curve video that we offer in streaming format online. What we're going to show you in this video is how to put straight zippers in that run pretty much from the top all the way down and actually cut the bottom facing of the lower edge of the Dodger. Those vertical slits can be put pretty much anywhere. My preference is to have them somewhere on the outside of the hatch area. We have pretty much decided on this particular Dodger that we would like to run our zippers right here. So what we want to do next is Eric's going to help me with this by giving me a thumbs up, hopefully. Basically, all we're going to do is try and get from the bow of the boat what looks to be pretty much a vertical. Okay, right about there, Eric. Looks good. Okay, and I'm going to make a mark with my soapstone pencil here at the top, and I'm just going to make a mark down here at the bottom. Now we only have to do this on, and this really could be any which way you want it, but we want it pretty vertical because when we roll up this panel, obviously we want it to roll with the edges as square as possible. But this could be however you like it. Again, you could move it here, you could put it pretty much wherever you want. I want it in this area because when we're done here, I'm going to have a solid snap point here, and then we're going to have to bring another snap down in here somewhere in order to have a fastener position on either side of the zipper. Now we only have to do this on the one side because what we'll do on the other side is we'll take some diagonal measurements to make sure that it's perfectly parallel to this particular line. However, in order to make sure we've got a starting point, well, we don't even need to measure anything over there because we'll have a similar flap on the other side, so we'll know where the starting point is. So that's really all we need. And then we'll take this off, take it to the loft floor, and show you how to put the zippers in. All right, we removed our Dodger from the boat, and you can see where we've made our marks visually for where the front zipper slit will be to roll up the center panel of the Dodger. And I've continued that mark all the way down to the bottom edge because our zipper is going to run all the way through to the bottom so we can unzip this slit, and we'll have a slit here and we'll have a slit over here. So what we want to show now is how do we transfer this vertical over to this side, to the starboard side of the boat, and make sure that the two are parallel. And the best way to do that is simply to have a reference point, and we've got that right here at the bottom, and let's just say it's roughly 3/4 of an inch. What I'm going to do then is over here, we want to be in about that same position. Now this cuts in a little bit, so I'm going to assume that comes straight down, and I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch roughly from that straight down, which would be right there. And this is going to denote our bottom point for the zipper. Now we need to find the top point. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to measure diagonally. And Deb's going to help me flatten this out and just bring that point right to that spot there. Deb, and hold it there for me if you would. And then I'm coming down here, and what we have, are we there, Deb?
Yep.
Okay, so we're 46 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. So 46 and 5/8. So now what we're going to do is come across at the other diagonal, and she's going to flatten the canvas here, and we're going to go 46 and 5/8, and wherever that intersects that edge right there, we're going to make a mark there. And now if we connect these 2 points, we now will have 2 parallel slits.
We'll join those lines on the canvas with our grease pencil here through the vinyl glass. We'll use a 3/4 inch binding and run it alongside our lines and wrap it around the bottom facing here, and we'll mark it with our soapstone pencil. Then we'll take a hot knife or a soldering gun or a wood burning tool and cut our 3/4 inch binding to size. Make sure you seal both ends. Then we'll put double-sided tape on the binding. Peel off the transfer tape, revealing the glue, and then match up that edge of the binding with the edge of the vinyl window right here at the top, so make sure it's butted up, and then run the binding down the length of our line that we drew on the glass and on the bottom edge of the Dodger, being sure that it is very straight along that line. When we get to the bottom edge of the Dodger here, we'll wrap it around the edge about 1 inch or 2. There we are. Now we'll take another strip of Sunbrella binding, 3/4 inch, and cut it to size. We've used a hot knife on the ends, and we've also installed the double-sided tape to the back side, and then we butt it up right against that other binding. Baste it in place. Before we install that zipper to the other side, we'll take this assembly over to the sewing machine and sew a straight stitch to the inside edge of the binding. We'll start right here at the join where the binding comes against the edge of the window, and we'll reverse here to lock our stitch in place. Take your time sewing here and keep your stitch as straight as possible right along that inner edge of the binding, as shown here in the video. Make sure that the binding on the back side is exactly in place before you get to it. Then just sew all the way to the bottom, and then do some reversing to lock your stitch in place. Follow that same procedure for the inside edge of the other strip of binding. We'll be using a finished zipper for this front roll-up window. We're going to cut off the stops here, and if your zipper were a little bit too long, you would obviously want to cut it to the exact size of the window. Then use a hot knife and seal the edges, but do not melt the teeth because we need to pull the slider off as shown here. With the slider removed, we'll position it and make sure that we've cut it to the exact size that we want. We want that zipper to stop right here at the facing. We'll then take our double-sided tape and position it on both sides of the zipper flange, keeping it as far away from the teeth as possible. We'll stop the double-sided tape here because we're only going to sew it down to the window portion of the Dodger. We'll actually have it hang over the inside edge just a slight bit. So we'll start the double-sided tape here. Peel off the transfer tape, revealing the glue, and then carefully baste the zipper on top of the 2 strips of 3/4 inch binding. The zipper will be almost exactly the same size as the 2 strips of binding. That's why we use 3/4 inch binding here. If you're not happy about where it's been placed, you can peel it up and reapply it if necessary. We'll then take this over to the sewing machine and sew a straight stitch along that outer edge of the zipper, all the way down its length. When we get to the edge of the glass, we'll stop right there. We will not sew all the way to the end of the zipper, but stop and do a few reversing stitches there at the end. No need to go into that binding that was used as a perimeter around the glass. And then do the same procedure to the opposite side of the zipper flange, starting here on the facing. Deb doesn't do some reversing here at the beginning of the zipper. She probably should have done that. Try to keep your stitches as straight as possible. You can always scroll the material as you see here to get it through the throat of the sewing machine. Once the zipper is sewn in place, take some scissors and split the canvas and the vinyl glass carefully, being sure that you don't cut into your teeth. If you cut into the teeth, you'll have some problems. The teeth actually start here, so we don't have to worry about it until we get to that point.
I'm not taking them all the way to that.
So be careful and cut as neatly as possible, trying not to cut your binding that you just placed on top of the vinyl window. It'll slip pretty easily. We're going to cut it all the way to the top of the window. We will stop when we get to that binding that goes around the perimeter of the window. So we'll stop right here. Now it's slipped. It's important that you install the slider before you install the end stops. This is a double pole locking slider, so it's a little bit stubborn. You have to actually apply force to the puller to get the slider to move, but that's nice because when the Dodger's installed, we don't want these windows to open up under force, so that's why we use a locking slider. Once it's in place, then we can install the zipper stops to keep the slider from coming off when we zip it down. These are stainless steel zipper stops. You'll need to order 2 per zipper. They just simply fit over the tooth, and then you just use pliers or needle nose pliers and then press them over the tooth. We'll install one on this side, and we'll also install one on the opposite side. Here's the opposite side. We'll not show all this. And here it is installed.
You can tuck that up in there if you want.
We'll also be installing some straps so that we can roll the window up and keep it in place. We're going to position our straps approximately 10 inches in from each one of these zippers. There's no hard fast rule for this, but 10 inches is a good measurement. Once we've determined where our snap will sit in our Dodger, we'll take some scrap binding, approximately 2 foot long, use a hot knife to cut it, and then we'll put a hole in the end of it. We'll first fold the binding over to approximately 1 inch, so we're going through 2 layers of binding as shown here in the video. We'll then install a hole in our canvas where we've indicated it here. We're using the 1/8 inch hole cutter. Be sure there's nothing on the back side. You don't want to go through an extra layer of canvas, because that'll really make you upset. So Deb's making sure that she's just going through what she wants to here, so she's checking carefully. As you can see, we're also using the rubber cutting block on the back side. We'll put a hole in that position, and we'll also put a hole in that other position near the other zipper. Now we'll take our eyelet and our stud. We'll place the eyelet through that binding.
This side up.
We'll unzip that window a little bit so we can get better access to our Dodger. We'll take it over there and install the eyelet through the hole, but we're going to use the Deluxe Snap Fastener tool here to lay the eyelet on top of it, push it through the hole. Then we'll place the stud on top, and then we'll use the tool to roll the barrel over. Be sure the webbing is straight on the bottom side before you roll the barrel over with the tool. Do the same thing to the other side.
Have our straps here on the back side, anchored on.
To determine the length of our binding, we'll unzip the rolled up section of our Dodger window, roll it nice and tight, just like we'd want it on the boat.
Now each person's going to be a little different, so what you want to do, bring these around, however tight you want to roll
Position the binding over the rolled
it.
window,
Measure this down.
and then mark the position of the stud so that you can
Access
install
afterwards.
the button in the socket.
Spot where we want it. So I'll just set that off to the side. Okay. Do the same thing with the other side. Just take this here. That's where your button is going to be. So we want to make sure that that's doubled over. So give yourself plenty from your mark. And then just cut your binding off. Same with this side. A little bit over. We have both thicknesses there. We're going to punch a hole through the center of it. Put our button.
We'll install that button through the binding, then install the socket and place it on top of the Deluxe Snap Fastener installation tool. The concave side is facing up. Then we'll use that tool to roll the barrel over. That's all there is to it. Then we do the same thing for the other side. We'll now mount the Dodger to the boat.
As you can see, our zipper slits have been installed in our Dodger front panel. And now what we want to do, if we were to unzip this zipper slit, there we go, and then unsnap the forward panel, we don't have any support right here. So what we want to do now is we want to mount a snap, and it doesn't have to be right at the edge because the fabric is stiff enough there that it'll hold. And I'm probably going to mount it about 6 inches from this snap position. I think that makes sense, along our original yellow line, which is still on the deck. Doing this just like we did before, so you don't need to see it all, but
We'll now install the snap using the Press and Snap tool. The beauty of the Press and Snap tool is that you can install snaps onto your canvas without removing your canvas because it punches a hole and presses a snap at the same time.
now we're on the starboard side and you can see our zipper slit here. I've decided to mount my snap so that it is next to the control line opening here, and that should give me pretty decent holding of this when the zipper is free or open, when the front panel's open. So now I'm going to mark this.
And now the snap's installed. In some applications where a snap needs to hold a little bit harder, Sailrite carries a special hard action snap socket. You can order those separately.
Now let's show you how this front panel's going to work. So what we want to do is unzip the panel. We can roll our front panel.
If you've ordered a Sailrite Dodger kit, the Dodger kits do not come with the materials necessary for making a roll-up window. You'll need to order those separately.
Our straps around. And we get great breeze through the front.
That's all that's required to build a roll-up window for your Dodger.